Państwa ponownie po krótkiej przerwie. Bardzo proszę o zajmowanie miejsc, bo już za moment rozpocznie się pierwszy panel dyskusyjny tego kongresu. Niezwykle ciekawy panel, po którym bardzo wiele sobie obiecujemy, ale zanim zaproszę tutaj na scenę moderatora tego panelu i jego uczestników, znakomitych naszych gości z zagranicy, słowo wstępne ze strony prezesa. Jan Grzegorz Prądzyński, zapraszam.
Proszę Państwa, jest mi niezmiernie miło powitać w Sopocie i na naszej konferencji, powiem tak, naszych gości honorowych, czyli Terri Vaughan i Karela van Hulle oraz pana Paula Charmę. A jeśli chodzi o nadzór światowy, ale również o rozwiązania europejskie, aktualnie są to osoby, które mają największą wiedzę, prezentują różne poglądy i mam nadzieję, że ich prezentacja, a jednocześnie ich dyskusja pokaże nam, że może nie ma tylko tego nadzoru, jak prezentuje pan przewodniczący, który miał być, ale jest jego teczka. To dobrze. W każdym razie poprosimy przewodniczącego, może też w wyniku tej dyskusji przemyśli będzie miał przemyślenia na temat na przykład wytycznych i czy jest rolą nadzoru wchodzenie tak głęboko w działalność operacyjną zakładów ubezpieczeń. Także zapraszam pana Paula Charmę, Terri Vaughan i Karela van Hulle do nas.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session where we will be discussing again regulation, a continuing theme, both the blessing and the curse of the insurance industry, regulation. We'll be discussing it from a global perspective, from a North American, from a US perspective, and from a European perspective. I'm Paul Sharma. I shall be moderating this panel. Until the end of last year, I was deputy head of the UK's insurance regulator and chairman of the Financial Stability Committee at the International Association of Insurance Supervisors. I'm now a consultant at Alvarez & Marsal, helping insurance companies throughout Europe cope with the demands of regulators. I'm going to ask Terri Vaughan and Karela van Hulle to introduce themselves in detail and say something about their history so that you can get some perspective as to where they come from.
Thank you very much, Paul. Paul asked us to share not only about our where we come from, how we spent our career, but then a little bit about how that drives our perspectives on the issues. And so I'm going to go on for a couple of minutes because I think the way that I think about things, we're all affected by our history when we think about issues. And I have spent the bulk of my career in either academia or regulation. And I grew up in an academic family. My father was a professor of insurance, and I grew up hearing, and he was passionate about the industry. He was really, really passionate about it. And used to take me to meetings and make me sit in the back of the room when he spoke, and I inherited or sort of absorbed his passion for the industry and went on the road to being a professor where I studied regulation in the industry, had the opportunity to become the insurance commissioner in the state of Iowa, and did that for a little over 10 years. Went back to went back to academia so that I could, again, study and reflect on what I had learned while I was a regulator. And after 4 years back in academia, actually after about 3.5 years, the financial crisis hit on the weekend of the AIG, Lehman, was it Merrill Lynch? Remember when everything fell apart, that Lehman weekend? I began to think that maybe I wanted to be back in regulation again for a while to see this through. And so I did. So I sought out the NAIC, and they hired me as the CEO, and I spent the next 4 years in that, left at the end of 2012. And we'll be in June going back to academia again as a dean of the College of Business at Drake University for 1 year. So the history that I have, and I give you that because I want to make a couple points about how I think about the issues. And first of all, I think about the role of the insurance industry and what it plays in the management of risk in our society, and that very, very important role that it plays by instilling a culture of risk. My father used to say that it's not just that the insurance industry takes, risk from people and pays them when they have losses. It's that the way they do it incents people to do the right thing. So the industry is constantly scanning, and when they see something happening in some segment of the economy and it is generating losses, they raise prices. And that causes behaviors to change. So it's about creating a risk culture in the economy and society as a whole. And that creation of the risk culture works. The industry is able to do that because it's in the business of managing risk, and it has its own culture about risk. It thinks about risk. It worries about risk. That's what it does. That's what it does. That's its business model. So I think that's a very important part. And when I think about regulation, one of the things that I think about a lot is we got to be careful that we don't screw up that culture. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. And the other thing, and this was an aha for me during the financial crisis, I got a much better appreciation for the role of the insurance industry in managing risk over time. The idea that at boards of directors, when they're thinking about the long-term changes in the industry, and the life industry is offering guarantees, and it's able to manage through volatility in the short run. And that's also an important role that this industry plays in society. So the other part of my thing I think that I gathered over my years as a regulator is an appreciation for the limitations of regulation. The market is terribly diverse. The market is terribly complicated, and it's constantly changing. And regulators, supervisors need to be light on their feet. I had lots of experiences as a supervisor in Iowa where I had to react very quickly to something, and where I discovered things that I didn't know about. And you can pretty much expect at any supervisor, there are things out there in the market that they don't know about. They're going to stumble across, and that's just the nature of the business. So you got to be light on your feet. You got to be agile. Our previous speaker talked about the importance of agility. Supervisors need to be agile. And then I come from a system of state-based regulation. The U.S. is a big market. It is a diverse market. We have a structure where regulators are responsible for protecting policyholders in their own markets. And over the years, that has caused us to have to work together and to learn how to supervise an industry that's operating on a cross-border basis. What does it take? Where do you need rules? Where do you need cooperation? What does each of those contribute to the solution? And so that idea of collaboration, cooperation, and understanding of how supervisors interact is something that drives a lot of my views on this as well.
Karel.
Well, first of all, dzień dobry. That's about all my Polish. I must apologize for that. But I'm very pleased to be here with Terri, and in fact, her profile is partly shared with me. I didn't start my career as academic. I started my career as a banking supervisor for only 8 years. But then I thought maybe accounting is more interesting. And I became an official at the European Commission and was put in charge of the accounting harmonization in the European Union. And everybody felt sorry about me. They said, the poor guy spends all his time talking about accounting. And then I was asked to do auditing. And then people said, he really didn't make it in the commission, because can there be anything more boring than auditing? Most people in the Commission didn't know there was a difference between accounting and auditing, but that's another issue. And I lived through the Enron crisis with all the problems of the profession. And then I was told to do insurance. I became head of insurance and pensions. And then I had the sympathy of everybody in the Commission, because nobody wanted to do that. And then they said, and Karel, why don't you do Solvency II? And I said, what is Solvency I? And people started to explain to me Solvency I. And I thought to myself, this can't be true. We have to change it. It's so complicated that it's hardly possible to explain it, and it has so many disadvantages to it because it doesn't do what Terri was talking about. It does not include an incentive for the insurance industry to do good risk management. And I think it is all about risk management that we're talking about when we talk about insurance. And when I started my career, I remember my first presentation I made for, it was then called CEA, which is now Insurance Europe. I said that it took me about 1 week to realize the importance of insurance. And I gave the following example. Suppose in the evening I have 100 euros. And I have the choice. I can put it in the bank. What do I have the next day? 95 euros. Because the bank will already ask me 5 euros as fee. So, I could also put it under my pillow. What would I then have the next morning? 100 euros. If I am in the evening at home, and I know I don't have insurance, home insurance, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And that is the difference between